November 6th, 2009, AD, 10:28. What's up, guys? So, this is a new game. Um, and we're just gonna go along with the ride. So, yeah, let's go. Woo. It came across without warning. And it is kind of like a visual novel, like choose your path thing. I haven't played it really, but that's what I read um, before the purchase. And I have no idea what's going to happen. Oh, whoop. Well, okay. I don't know if that actually happened, but I don't think it did. It's a magnitude 7.8 earthquake with an epic center directly under the city. This disaster reduced one of Tokyo's busiest downtown areas to nothing in a single night. The high-rise buildings that had birthed so many trends and fads collapsed. As if giving up on their roles in society, fires spread through the city as individuals fell into the grip of the crowd. Psychologically, their terror was magnified. The final death toll was 3,851. The final numbers of the injured was 30,927. This event would later be known as the Shibuya earthquake. Even in all that destruction, people still suffered, and most in their hearts. Some had lost their families, came together to share new resolves, while others had been forced to watch their friends and die, are driven by guilt to take their own lives. As a baby was miraculously reunited with its parents after 72 hours, a child in the accusation shelter asked her dad when mommy's coming home. He had no answer. Some of the wounded made it to the hospital by looking at real-time updates on the web. A homeless man was saved from malnutrition by an organization volunteer group, but at the same time, a middle school boy punched a self-centered volunteer who came to Shibuya to find himself in the face. It was the first time in that boy's life he'd ever been violent. The psychological toll was incredible, and many of the survivors would later manifest symptoms similar to those associated with PTSD. The young were hit the hardest. Before long, the cause of these symptoms was given a name: chaoschild syndrome. Rebuilding happened at a feverish pitch never seen before. It felt inappropriate to say hang in there, but people felt that somebody had to do something. The new slogan was Shibuya, a city reborn, and no amount of money or manpower was spared in aiding the endeavor. The whole town was in the grip of a fever. In private, a leader of the redevelopment effort said, "This sounds unkind, but this frenzy feeling like a town bearing its grief by holding a festival." Buildings codes were rigorous, evaluated with an eye towards earthquake engineering. Perhaps in an effort to emphasize the city's safety, security cameras were put all over the town. Shibuya would become a place where everyone could live in peace. But at the same time, a rumor began to spread around the earthquake. Something about this earthquake doesn't make sense. There were no aftershocks, and the damage had spread in a strange way. Areas only a kilometer away from Shibuya suffered few casualties and fewer collapsed buildings. This damage pattern had never been observed in any prior earthquakes, and so more than a few pundits claims to Shibuya's earthquake must be artificial. More than anything, some of the survivors all said the same thing. I saw a white light. I heard a sound like a ringing in my ears. Too many people experienced this for anyone to laugh it off, but no cause of those phenomena was ever found. It was just more evidence to those who believed that something about the earthquake had been wrong. Then 6 years after the strange earthquake in 2015, something else was about to attract attention in the reborn city of Shibuya. Shibuya. September 7th, 2015. Sunday night. Okay, I'm going to take 3 minutes for questions. Get to it. The second he spoke, the comment box started to fill. Yuma Otani watched it for a few seconds, and then he saw the request. When does Haru tell us she's dating somebody? He smiled to himself. Just what he wanted. Most of the requests were about hot actors or cute idols. His audience was so stupid that it was easy to tell exactly what they were going to ask. So I'm gonna go to templates. Okay. So Haru was a 19-year-old, a minor celebrity, became famous as a result of her declaration that no one her age knew as much about retro games and retro anime as she did. Her ability to back up declaration up on the internet and live stream programs, wears glasses, her plain clothes and hair seemed to be popular with otaku. Okay, so she's just basically a super young otaku that's a super nerd. Oh, she's fictional. Oh. Okay. Wait, is this all fictional? Oh, okay. Well, I would assume that all this is fictional. A live stream service, by Nautica. Oh, wait, this might be Neko Neko. Just like the videos, viewers can add comments, and yep, this is Neko Neko. Push traumatic stress disorder from the 4th edition of the DSM-IV, the American Diagnostic, published caused by severe shock from experience by an accident, disaster, crime, or other serious traumatic event. The mental disorder causes any number of stress-related issues. Symptoms include psychological instability, insomnia, confusion, memory trouble, and other problems that last for over a month. Wow. Okay, let's go back. It was 11:41 p.m. It's 11:41 p.m., man. Like, I don't think I'd be going anywhere or answering any doors unless I knew the person for sure. Not exactly normal delivery hours. Oh, come on in. I'm streaming right now. You tried to ignore it, but the knocking continued. It was the same rhythm. What if the visitor goal wasn't to come inside, but simply to make that sound? Otan felt a bit creeped out. He decided to go to the intercom camera and see who it was, but then he realized it would be pointless. Only the auto-locking door on the first floor had a camera. The door to Otan's room was on the 5th. had an intercom but no camera. Baton gave up. Damn it, if you want something, push the intercom button. Maybe it's a drunk. No, the knocks were too steady for that. There was no voice yelling at him to open up. He'd seen this door a million times, but suddenly it looked somehow different. Someone didn't know was on the other side of the wall, demanding entry in the middle of night. Somehow this made the door seem intimidating. Otan thought he might look through the peephole to see who was outside. He was then disgusted to find himself too scared to even get close to the door. Wait, the intercom didn't have a camera, but it did have a microphone. He turned towards the living room so he could use the intercom and find out what they wanted. Otan, it's me. Sorry to come by so suddenly. He stopped when he heard that voice. It's me. I'm very sorry to bother you at this hour. Otan tried to remember who the speaker was, but he found he couldn't. But from the tone of the voice, the words, they probably weren't a weirdo. They said, I'm sorry. It sounded like they really meant it. Otan sighed softly with relief, then realized he was still carrying the knife he had been using to cut cheese. He suddenly felt stupid to feel so nervous. He quickly had laid the knife on top of the sink. Right, I'll open it now. Who is it? It's me, don't you remember? The voice simply repeated itself. But who are you? Otan whispered to himself as he opened the door. Otan narrowed his eyebrow at the people standing there. He looked up and down, then looked at their faces again. Their eyes met. Who are you, guys? Otan suddenly felt a piercing headache. Otan closed his eyes, put his right hand up to his temple. He felt the blood pounding in his veins through his fingers. He staggered and quickly put his other hand against the wall to keep from falling. The pain was like the old days when he overdosed on antidepressants, much more intense. He grit his teeth again in pain and dug his nails into the wall that was holding him up. As he waited for the pain in his fingers to help dull the pain in his mind. Mr. Otan, are you okay? He heard a voice he heard many times before. He somehow managed to ignore the pain and open his eyes. A worried face was peering down at him. Yeah, I'm fine. Just happens sometimes lately. Overwork, perhaps? You've been so busy lately. You shouldn't push yourself too hard. You're always such a worrier. Come in. He opened his mouth as wide as he could and moaned, trying to ease the pain as he let his important guests inside. As he turned his back on his guests, he told himself that it had been a long time since he'd seen him. Or maybe not. It couldn't have been more than 2 months since they last met. It only felt long because he wanted to see them so badly. Oh, right. It was nice of you to come by. But I'm streaming. While he was out, he decided he would cut some cheese for himself. Don't worry about us. No, I can't do that to you guys, huh? What's wrong? No, it's nothing. The blade wasn't cutting into the cheese. That's strange, he told himself as he pushed down with more force. Ah, he cut into the surface and it made an unpleasant sound he had never heard before. But no matter how hard he pushed, it wouldn't go further. Did he cut his finger? He confused. He yanked the knife back forward and saw that it was only slightly deeper. It was as if there was something hard inside the cheese. Even though he had only just taken it out of the fridge, it was slightly warm. What's going on with this thing? Irritated, he slammed the handle of the knife against the cheese. All it had done was bash in a little. He couldn't cut it through. I'll help you. His guests must have heard the sound because they rushed over. They had another knife. When did they get that out? There was a trick to cutting this thing. They put the knife against the cheese and began to move it with a practiced hand. It sounded like their work is going well. They smiled, their voice slightly low. Rotan realized that they were trying to keep their voice from being picked up by the stream microphone and lowered his voice as they, yeah. He grinned and nodded. His guest had introduced himself to a firm that hand-led advertisement space for popular websites which had been giving him regular work. The reputation had quietly spread throughout the small web advertising industry, and soon it was getting more and more offers. This job's all about predicting trends, so it's perfect for me. I can't lose. Then why do you do these streams? It's hard to say. I guess you could say I'm trying to see how far I can go. That's right. This power wasn't meant to be wasted on jobs that anyone could do. No one's done this before, so I can't ask anybody about it, you know? So I want to do everything I can by myself, or am I somehow like a show-off? No, it's wonderful, I think, and done. After he smacked it a few times, the cheese was a little funny looking, but even the slices were lined up neatly on the plate. Sorry to make you help like that. It's nothing. Go on. I'll wait until your stream is finished. Thanks. If you want something from the fridge, grab it. Otan took his cheese back to the seat and saw a flood of comments reading, "He's late. Did he log off?" What should have only been 3 minutes had turned into 15. Otan put a bite of cheese in his mouth and began to chew loudly. So sorry, I bought this cheese on sale and it just was so incredibly hard. He apologized to the camera, remembering to keep up the act of being poor and starving. As he hoped, the comments started to come in. Or do you have new hobbies? What happened? I'm very worried. That's always right? Shake, stop it. It's disgusting. I can't read the comments or watch this. I can only laugh. You trained in Hollywood? Don's face took on in confusion. The comments were strange. He thought there might be something on the camera, but he turned around and saw only his fake poor room. Is something wrong? He spoke into the camera, but the comments still didn't make sense. They were coming in faster. Maybe there was a problem with the camera. He reached the right hand out towards it. In an instant, his headache was back. It was the same pain, no worse. He closed his eyes, jerked forward, banged his head against the desk. But the pain in his head was so bad he didn't even feel it. He tried to hold his head in his hand, but for some reason his right hand wouldn't move, so instead he pushed his other hand against his temple. It felt squishy. The veins was incredibly swollen, and it felt like rubber. Each time he felt his blood pulse through it, there was an unpleasant sensation in his finger. He stamped his feet against the floor, hoping to find some small escape from the pain, but it didn't even get slightly better. He realized he was crying. He felt the tears coming from his eyes. The pain was moving there, now too. Unable to bear it, he opened his eyes. He gasped. The whole scene appeared in front of him like some kind of awful magic trick. What's going on? He suddenly heard the sound of something wet dripping on the floor. He realized his reflective turned towards it. His right arm was gone at the elbow, and the stump was gushing blood. There was a pool of it on the floor, and the sound he heard was new blood splattering onto it. Huh? Otan didn't understand what had happened to him. What's going on? He just checked on the knock at the door. The pain screamed within him. In his sense of pain, what remained in his right arm was overcome by the pain in his head. He felt nothing from his arm at all, though he saw the blood dripping on the floor. What the hell was going on? He blinked and forced his aching eyes to function as he looked around the room. On top of the text, he found the rest of his arm. It was sitting on a plate. At first, he looked like it was still in one piece, but it wasn't. Oh, the cheese wasn't cheese, it was his arm. It was neatly sliced into uniform pieces. Each piece was about a centimeter wide, and sliced and moved neatly towards his fingers. Miraculously, he saw there was no blood on the tip. He still didn't understand that it was his own arm. With sheer disgust at what he saw, to leap out of his chair. What's this? What kind of prank was this? The contents of his stomach flowed into his mouth and he vomited. The pink... Whoa. He saw something solid in the middle of it. This is just a thumb. It's covered in bite marks, saliva, stomach, acid, but hardly he remembered it. What? He had put that in his mouth. In his pain-filled mind, he suddenly heard a sound. Ugh. Each time he heard the sound, the pain in his head got worse. He turned towards the camera, looking for an answer to what was happening. But of course, there was none to be found. The screen was still filled with comments, but his eyes were filled with tears for him to read. As for the whole world turned red, Otan didn't even realize his lips were turning purple. His lips had turned purple from the lack of oxygen, but were stained red with blood from the severe thumb which had been chewed himself. As he tried to fight the pain, he began to fall unconscious. The tears seemed pink to him. Otan was weeping blood. He died, still facing the camera. His guests watched the chain of the events unfold. Just before they left the room, goodbye, they said as if nothing at all was wrong and shut the door. Extra saucy. Wow. I can't believe that was one of the comments. Okay, September 19th, 2015. Momone Takayanagan Nagan or Nagi had been finished her concert. Like always, she stayed behind to help put away the instruments, but she even helped clean up the audience seats, even though that was the concert hall job. Only after all of that was done, she could take a break. There wasn't much left before her solo street concert, but she still had to help anyway. She had always been like that. Even if it wasn't her responsibility, she couldn't help but get involved. It was like in the middle school, when one of her friends who wasn't good at studying asked her for the test notes. Or in high school, when a girl she knew asked her how to make Valentine's chocolate for a boy she really liked. She stayed up so many nights, her own test grades were worse than her friends'. She didn't have even anyone to give chocolates to on Valentine's Day. In the end, it was the other person's responsibility, not hers, but...
要は下手れなんだろうな。
Momone was at her heart scared of not doing everything she could, even if everything wasn't her responsibility. The concert today was another big success. Sure, it was a tiny room that would only fit about 150 people or so, standing room, but the tickets were 3,000 yen, high for a band with amateur vocalists like her, and still sold out instantly. It was bizarre how excited the crowd was. She heard sobs during the ballad, and during one of the highest tempo songs, the audience had stood all up in the back row. She felt a chill, hugged herself tightly. It's not that her band wasn't popular. They started out sang in the Sing It category and had kept going by covers of popular anime songs. It helped her face, which had earned her the nickname Scarecrow in school, could look really good when she wore makeup. Also, I think I see a Hatsune Miku reference right there, but like with a beautiful like geisha looking face. It's beautiful. Also, I see the words fluffy. So let's go. And this is in English, even though it's on Neko or Nekoka Niya. I wonder if Neko is Nekoka Niya. I don't remember Neko TV being like that though. If all of them put on ridiculous costumes and had acted like idiots, some people would enjoy that. Videos of their concerts and performance pulled a decent number of views online. The vast majority of the people looking at the videos were people who'd come to their concerts. People who experienced that insane intensity were going back to the videos to try and feel it again. Knew they probably wouldn't feel even 1% of it. The ticket prices and audience sizes were one thing, but the strangest thing to her was their eyes. Their eyes were pierced right through her, unblinking. They were like pets, totally dependent on their master. The meaning of their lyrics began to take over their lives, and they never even questioned it. When she first realized that this was happening, she tried to quit the band. Even when she couldn't, she just at least wanted to stop doing the live shows where people heard her directly, but the others around her wouldn't let that happen. Your voice is amazing, they would tell her. They forced her to keep singing, even as the concerts began to terrify her. But in the end, she just kept giving in. She owed her fellow band members for getting a plain, dull girl like her in the music. And for a while, part of her managed to have fun. But in the end, she lacked the tiny bit of courage needed to break out of the cycle. She forced herself to get up and head towards the street concert, which she didn't really want to do. She received an email. She read it slowly. She almost dropped her smartphone. She read it again and again, trying to control her shaking hand. It was nothing special, just a simple message about one of the songs she made. Good song, keep it up. She tried to stop the tears, but couldn't. The band would get too many messages like this to count, especially at their concerts. She knew it was rude, but to be honest, she was sick of them. But this email wasn't for her band, it was one for a site which she had anonymously uploaded original songs. In other words, whoever sent this message hadn't come to her concerts. They never heard her voice live and felt its strange power, but they still said they liked her song. Wiping away tears that wouldn't stop, she quickly wrote a response. That makes me really happy, thank you. Even after she sent it, she kept crying for a while. She hadn't cried this much since the earthquake. Then she stood up. She took her costumes for the day's concert out of her bag, balled them up, and threw them in the trash. It was a white caped outfit worn by some angel character in some anime. Certain fans really loved it, but she didn't care about it at all. She took a wet towel off a nearby table and violently wiped away her makeup. I think I'm okay with being a scarecrow. She was never wearing another cape or putting on makeup to look like an anime character again. She never said, she said out loud, she realized she was more excited than ever been before. Then she started to realize what she wanted to do. What would happen if she was going to quit the band? It caused her trouble for a lot of people, definitely. Her band was scheduled to play in Resolution Festival, but even so, she wanted to sing at another concert. She laughed and kissed her smartphone. She couldn't wait to get home and start fiddling with her music. Over the web, she could really share her music with others. As long as they weren't hearing her voice live, it would be fine. If she just played a recording from a speaker, for example, that's right, she'd leave Shibuya, and when she had a few more songs, she could record them and play them at a concert street. That speaker was small enough that she could fit it under her clothes to fool people. It would be rude to do the same song every time, so each time she'd re-record it at home. There was a knock at the door. One of the staffers, maybe? She smiled and answered them. Now as she'd thrown away her clothes, her bag was lighter than she ever imagined it could be. The lightness made her think about the future. She was happy. Knock, knock, knock.
Hi.
Coming in. Happily danced towards the door, completely ignorant of what was on the other side. September 19th, 2015. Friday night. Shortly after she finished, she was walking through Shibuya. She had a limp and dragged one leg behind her as it was injured. Her bangs were unnaturally long. Most of her face was covered by them. She wore a dark-colored dress that seemed to melt to the night. Above it, a red cardigan. Her chest, arms, and legs were almost completely covered. Despite the fact that the night was still warm, she wore gloves as if it were a sin to show any skin at all. Oh, sorry. She ran into a couple coming out of the hotel and staggered slightly. Oh, that's pretty, but she didn't even look at the people she ran into. She looked down and disappeared into the streets of Shibuya. What was that? Man, talk about creepy. Huh? Why? Digital native. What? I didn't even skip anything. Like, why would you? Okay, well, guys, we're in like an RV or a van of some sort. Um, we'll continue this on the next one. It's a lot to take in. All right, see you soon.